not claim this next feat as illusion. Watch carefully.
Welcome everyone to Enigma's Analysis. I'm your host, Mr. Enigma, and like anyone with decent taste, I love Christopher Nolan movies. He is my favorite director. He has yet to make a bad film, and with his next one, Tenet, finally due to hit theaters September 3rd, supposedly, what better time to turn out a top 10 list, especially since Christopher Nolan has had exactly 10 feature films up until this point. So before we preview Tenet, I'm gonna rank Nolan's movies in order of my preference, and that's all it is, just my opinion. This is not some objective greatest of list. Your mileage may vary, and that's okay. As long as we can agree that Nolan does awesome work, we're all good.
And here we go.
Number 10 is an easy choice because it's not even really fair to compare Nolan's first movie to the rest, and I'm sure Christopher himself would tell you that Following is easily his weakest work, as he was A, still likely figuring things out, B, it's only 69 minutes long, and C, oh yeah, that's right, he only spent $6,000 to make the movie. Even in 1998, that was nothing. The main character of Following basically stalks people as a hobby until a burglar confronts him about it and teaches him how to break into places, and he spirals out of control as he gets involved with other shady characters. It's shot in black and white, it's lit with the bare minimum of practical lights, and has a little too much telling rather than showing going on. But what else are you supposed to do with no budget, shooting over the course of a year with people who all have other jobs? The acting and the story are pretty good, and the movie itself is pretty watchable, so that alone is an accomplishment. Few other people could do this much with so little. Number 9, Insomnia. Now for most filmmakers, this would be their best movie, or at least close to it. But for Nolan, it's a relatively small, straightforward detective thriller, and it doesn't have the same crazy innovation of, say, Memento. It's also a remake of a Norwegian movie, and it's one of the rare works that Nolan and his brother didn't write. Al Flippin' Pacino plays an LA detective sent with his partner to investigate a murder in Alaska as Internal Affairs investigates an old case of his back home.
With your reputation, he can't touch you.
My reputation's no problem.
The sun's out 24/7 and Pacino's character can't sleep a wink. Then his partner tells him that he's going to help out Internal Affairs in return for immunity. Yikes.
They got nothing on you because there's nothing to get.
The acting from the two male leads in this is as top-notch as you'd expect. The story is a bit of a slow burn, but Nolan keeps it interesting throughout. This was the first time we got to see Nolan shoot in really pretty open spaces. It wouldn't be the last. Don't be fooled by the ranking though. Insomnia is really quite good. It's just a little less remarkable than the other movies on this list. Number 8 is The Dark Knight Rises, which is a tough one to dissect because Nolan seemed to adopt a mentality of, we're gonna throw as many awesome ideas on the screen as humanly possible, even if they don't logically tie together. And that's sort of DKR in a nutshell. It's full of terrific, jaw-dropping moments and concepts, but it's severely hampered by these big leaps in logic. Let's send every single member of the police force underground at the same time. What could possibly go wrong? How long does it take a broken back to heal? A random cop is supposed to become Batman? You know, the streets are surprisingly devoid of trash under Bane's rule. When The Dark Knight ended, fans immediately had fantasies about Batman on the run from the law, duking it out with cops as he tried to clear his name, and then we find out that he hung it up, it's 8 years later, and he let his body deteriorate.
Of course, sometimes exceptions have to be made.
Really? Alright, but even so, up until that point where Bane and Batman are duking it out for the first time, Dark Knight Rises is still killing it by and large. Then things get murkier. Tom Hardy as Bane is so good.
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
So he's stupidly minimized by the end of the movie for someone less interesting. Dark Knight Rises is still a way better third superhero trilogy movie than almost any other, possible exception being Civil War, and it's still very entertaining on the whole. But as a whole film, DKR was a tad disappointing, and it's not quite as good as the 7 movies above it on this list. Number 7 is Interstellar. It's the future, and the Earth doesn't want us humans anymore, so Matthew McConaughey is a NASA-level pilot who was forced to become a farmer, since the world had way more need for that than for space travel, and now he has to travel the cosmos to find another plan for humanity to get to and hopefully not ruin. It's long, and it asks quite a bit from the viewer. Interstellar ain't for everybody, as it boldly and repeatedly wades into the waters of theoretical astrophysics. You know, casual moviegoer's favorite thing.
What if we take a wider orbit around Gargantua, parallel with Miller's planet outside of this time shift to here?
Much like Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar is unparalleled in terms of scope and ambition. It's as big a movie as you'll ever see, and it's one of many examples of the Nolans proving that they just might be actual geniuses simply because they hold this plot together the whole time. But while it's often brilliant, there are a lot of parts where you just kind of have to go with it.
I wouldn't leave you behind, Dr. Brand.
He's sending Morse code through the seconds hand of a watch. Okay, sure, Nolan. Fine. Okay. I guess.
I know what Morse code is, Murph. I just don't think your bookshelf's trying to talk to you.
Interstellar kind of falls apart at the end, but you also kind of go with it because it has more thought put into it than like 3 or 4 average movies combined. Matthew McConaughey's sheer sincerity helps to hold together some of the more far-fetched or silly moments, and Jessica Chastain is just as off-the-charts good as she always is. I really hope Nolan finds more roles for her in the future. Every couple years I rewatch this one and just marvel at it while trying to convince myself that it all makes sense. Number 6, The Prestige. I know. Some of you are going to be mad that this one's not even higher, but really my criticisms of it go hand in hand with The Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar. It asks the viewer to take quite a few big leaps. But hey, we get to see Batman and Wolverine duking it out as 19th century magicians with a personal beef against each other, so that more than makes up for it. Keep in mind, it's a major plot point in this movie that the characters are able to find an exact identical twin for a guy in a random London pub. In 2020, with the internet and 9 billion people, it would be just about impossible to do that for most.
Are you laughing now?
And it's worth noting that if you haven't seen this one before, it's easy to forget that the entrance of the Tesla machine is really quite jarring for what has, until that point, been a very grounded in reality movie. I'm sure there are better uses for a cloning machine than a magic trick. Oh, and the character who's portrayed as more of the good guy in the end, I would argue is actually the bigger slime ball of the two, although neither one of them are exactly prizes by the end. That never sat well with me. Still, their obsessive rivalry is endlessly engaging, and the purposely convoluted plot's ability to keep you off balance and guessing is very impressive.
You don't really want to know. Want to be fooled.
There's a few Nolan movies that do that. Prestige is excellent. You just might want to take a few notes throughout to help you understand it. Okay, I'm finally done bellyaching about plot points, as number 5 is based on real life. Dunkirk. For those who don't know, the Nazis almost made quick work of England during World War II, pinning down hundreds of thousands of troops on a beach in Dunkirk, France, who were largely eventually rescued by an armada of civilian boats who came over from England to transport them. Nolan told the story from multiple perspectives, and it shouldn't surprise that the results are fantastic. Nearly every second of this film is permeated with anxiety. You're on the edge of your seat the entire time, waiting for the proverbial and literal bomb to drop. As always, major props to Hans Zimmer for the score. It really can't be downplayed how vital he has been to Nolan's continued success over the years. For a war movie, there's virtually no gore to be had in here. It's pretty non-violent on the whole. Many important roles are played by relative unknowns, though Kenneth Branagh, Tom Hardy, Cillian Murphy, and for some reason Harry Styles are all present. The few who dislike Dunkirk probably find it a bit too distant from the characters, I guess. Maybe a bit too clinical, since there aren't a ton of big, weepy, emotional moments.
They've told us to strip her and load those life jackets. Some men across the channel at Dunkirk need taking off. Some men.
And I think Nolan gets that criticism a lot, but I don't feel that. This is war. This is large scale. I loved it. Leave it to Nolan to find new ways to make World War II interesting in 2017. Number 4, Batman Begins. I was only really starting to get into movies in 2004, so this one snuck up on me. I barely even realized it was out before I saw it, and holy crap, what a pleasant surprise it was. After the 90s movies, oof. Superhero movies just weren't supposed to be this thought out or this believable. I mean, this is maybe the best origin story in all of superhero movies, with only 2002's Spider-Man even being in contention. Even with his stupid bat growl,
Nice go.
Christian Bale is the best Bruce Wayne, hands down. You're being silly if you say otherwise. In fact, the Wayne stuff in this movie is so interesting, I think you could argue that it's actually better than the stuff where Bruce is in costume as Batman, as the only nitpick you could really have is that Nolan shoots his fight scenes way too close in Batman Begins, to the point where you can't even really tell what's going on. And Katie Holmes as a grizzled member of the DA's office is a tad hard to swallow, but could be worse. But that's it. Everything else about Batman Begins is superb. Michael Caine gives us a slightly different take on the Alfred character that makes him way more charming than he's ever been.
May I suggest you try to avoid landing on your head?
Liam Neeson is extremely effective as Ra's al Ghul, a villain who very much needed to get on the big screen, and it goes from there. Gotham feels like Gotham should feel. All the groundwork had been laid for this long before in the comics. Nolan just took it all and ran with it. This is how you do a comic book adaptation. Number 3, Inception. I love this one from the first time I saw it, but it gets better and better with repeat viewings. The script and the effects that make it happen are downright genius.
Dream within a dream. I kept pushing things. I wanted to go deeper and deeper. I wanted to go further.
I actually get depressed after I see this movie sometimes because I think, how can anyone write at this level? I guess I'll go back to writing my comedy full of poop jokes. Inception is the idea of planting an idea in someone's brain by invading their dreams. And not only that, but you can have dreams within dreams, and it gets crazy and confusing. But that factors into the viewing experience as you're never quite sure what's real and what isn't. It's very satisfying when you get a grip on which layer is which and what's going on. And how cool is that fight scene with the weird gravity where Joseph Gordon-Levitt fights a bunch of dudes in a hallway that they literally physically rotated. Leo DiCaprio plays the lead character who is hired to use Inception to convince the owner of a corporation to shut down his company. If he can do it, the guy who's hired him will clear his mysterious criminal record that's preventing him from getting back to the United States and to his children. Watching Inception is a big endeavor, but if you've got the time and you're okay with thinking, this one's brilliant. It's got a strong cast full of big names: Marion Cotillard, Ellen Page, Michael Caine, Tom Hardy. And once you get past the early exposition, the cool ideas and visuals don't stop until the end credits. After all, when a movie's in a dream, everything's fair game. I love it. Number 2, Memento is one of my favorite movies from anyone, and one of the big reasons I wanted to get a film degree. So thanks for that one, Nolan. Talk about a tight, smart movie with a small budget. Leonard Shelby, wonderfully played by Guy Pearce, lost the ability to make new memories after a blow to the head from the guy that killed his wife. So after a few minutes, he forgets everything that happened after that.
I've told you this before, haven't I?
Yeah, I don't mean to mess with you, but it's so weird.
That makes it awfully difficult to chase down a murderer. Nolan tells the story by presenting the scenes in reverse chronological order while we're given background info with a series of black and white flashbacks that precede the color scenes. So the very first scene in the movie is the very last thing that happens chronologically. It's not only brilliant, but it makes an ultra compelling story out of a series of events that are only mildly interesting when told chronologically. Making Memento even more impressive, there are only 3 major roles with maybe 2 more that get any kind of real screen time. This was Nolan's second feature film. How is that possible? I'm sure some would move this lower on the list because it's such a small movie, making it hard to say that it's better than Inception. But the narrow focus, the fact that we're seeing everything from a wildly unreliable, confused narrator is part of the genius of it. There's some great background music in this one too. Everything about Memento is just so good. And number 1, sorry to be predictable, it's The Dark Knight. What are you gonna do? It's one of the best movies ever. I'm not gonna say a whole lot about it because that would be like telling people why the Beatles are so great. It's like, yeah, we got it. They're awesome. Thanks. I mean, Dark Knight has everything. Everything. Arguably the best movie villain of all time.
This town deserves a better class of criminal, and I'm gonna give it to him.
Those IMAX camera shots. The fight scenes are shot way better than Batman Begins. Infinitely memorable lines.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
The top-notch script that actually manages to be very surprising while being awesome. Cool stunts and effects. They flip an 18-wheeler truck. Memorable music. Even people who can't stand superhero movies still like this one. It's got excellent acting. Except the one real knock on it, Maggie Gyllenhaal is so miscast in this role. Not only is it just jarring that Katie Holmes played Rachel, which I guess they couldn't help, but Gyllenhaal's acting isn't great, and let's be real here. Does anyone really buy that the 2 most powerful men in the city are competing to win her over?
Bruce, don't make me your one hope for a normal life.
Holmes was flawed in the role, certainly, but at least she was believably hot. Oh well, the movie's nearly perfect otherwise, and I'm not just saying this to close out the segment. I'm actually going to go rewatch this one sometime soon. It's been way too long since I've seen it. So that's how I'd rank Nolan's movie so far. Let me know in the comment section what you would move up, what you would move down. There's really no wrong answers here. But wait, we need to talk about movie number 11 that is yet to come out. We really don't know a lot about Tenet in terms of plot, which is kind of exciting. There's some kind of spying secret agent thing going on, and time travel factors in some way, though it seems to be objects traveling back in time more than people. But it's a typical Nolan movie, which is a great thing. It's 2.5 hours long. There's a lot of awesome practical visuals that don't yet make sense. Michael Caine is in it. So is Kenneth Branagh. Robert Pattinson is probably the biggest name. It's also been delayed repeatedly thanks to the pandemic, but who can blame Nolan on that one? More so than anyone else, he shoots his stuff to be seen on a big screen. So right now it's coming out September 3rd. That could change again, but Warner Brothers spent $225 million on this, so they really need to make their money back. And with Nolan's movies, something like 50% of their overall profits get made overseas. But other than a bunch of cool images, that's really all we got. It's not much, but it's enough. Watch the trailer, it's exciting. So when movie theaters reopen, Tenet will be there. And really, what are the odds that it's going to be bad? Okay, so that's that. Thank you for being patient with me waiting for this one. Most of my videos seem to have been nullified by this pandemic in some form or fashion. I mean, movie theaters didn't open on July 30th like they were supposed to. I previewed all the NFL teams, and now they're all going to look drastically different thanks to players opting out, if there even is an NFL season, which I strongly suspect there won't be. So I'm not going to be rushing videos out anytime soon. In the meantime, please click the like button, click subscribe to my channel, and the notifications bell so you know when I've dropped more Enalysis. Thank you for watching, Enigmaniacs. Enigma out.